Warning. This program contains strong language, auditory violence, and mental nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to your uncensored home for World of Warcraft news and opinions. With your host, Berserker, this is Unshackled Fury.
Our ship has finally come in. The Dragon Isles are available at last. And the third era of World of Warcraft has officially begun. So welcome back to your uncensored home for World of Warcraft news and opinions, Unshackled Fury. I'm your host, Berserker. This is episode 118. And on today's show, diving into our first big week into Dragonflight, my experiences and impressions with everything so far, and where I think we stand with just our first foot into this dragony foray. But first, I want to give a big shout out and a thank you to you, to all of you who listen to this show. I tweeted out a few things recently, one of them being, you know, when you do a podcast, and I hope for the most part that if you ever, do any sort of content creation, that you do it because it's something that you want to do. It's about something that you love, and so there's always this, maybe purer thing inside as to why you do a thing. But I think I've been pretty open about the fact that my ego plays a large part into the original genesis of this show, and that I generally have one, and it gets the best of me at times. So I say that without some sense of self-awareness. But I want to thank you, the folks who listen to the show, because for the first time, at least that I am aware of, this show ranked in the top 100 video game podcasts in the United States, which to me, that is not insignificant. And there are plenty of other shows that have been around, and they regularly rank like in the top 25, even higher. But this show, I do keep an eye generally on these things. We made it all the way up to 82, which is by far and away the best performance that this podcast has ever had. I would like to think that the interview with Ian Hazzikostas had a lot to do with that, and it should. Because, I'd be lying if I said that I hope, more people would listen to the show because we were able to snag that. But we made it up that high. And it would not be without you, the listener, for checking in. Maybe you stuck around. If you did, thank you. Appreciate you hanging around. And I hope I can still provide some non-interview content that you enjoy. But really appreciate everybody for the downloads and for the word of mouth, wherever that is. To get us in there, and I really appreciate that. On a secondary note about ego, going back to the last episode with Ian Hazzikostas and sort of the content creation news cycle, let's call it. I had a bit of a Twitter thread about this, when originally it had been this show and For Azeroth, both of us from Bonus Roll, and Raider.io, Hula Hoops from Raider.io, who was able to participate in the group interview that we did, the three of us, with Ian Hazzikostas, and how ultimately, because Raider.io got their write-up out first, that was the one that was picked up by Wowhead, I assume, and there were some attributions to us for Azeroth and Unshackled Fury, but it didn't contain everything, right? They saved some stuff in the Raider.io write-up, For Azeroth's going to talk about their stuff. I'm going to talk about our stuff. I thought we still had some revelatory stuff. The 1002 thing, all right, so maybe that wasn't such a big deal. But still, the encrypted content stuff, or how Blizzard is faring these days. I thought those were some of the good gets. But once that initial article got picked up, that was it. That was it as far as the community news aggregator site. And something I was trying to touch on in the last episode is when you do content creation, you have to be real careful about where you let your ego go. Because in this instance, right, even when Wowhead, pretty much the news site, the main news site for World of Warcraft, the community, didn't tag For Azeroth, didn't tag Unshackled Fury in the tweet, tagged Raider.io, didn't tag us. I do think that there is a bit of elitism there. I think that Wowhead, as Jason Lucas from the Starting Zone said, I do think that there is some elitism there when it comes to the pecking order of content creation. Podcasts, we're probably down there. We're not streamers, or streaming is not the same. But it's okay. And I was glad to be a part of it. It was interesting to see what the inside of that looks like. Hopefully that'll lead to more opportunities down the road and something maybe more long form. Needless to say, I think my interview style is one where I like to take time and get to know people and kind of hear their story, and less about the product and more about the person. And hopefully, maybe an opportunity will open itself up down the way. I thought we handled ourselves well. I thought we did a pretty good job, all of us, considering a bonus roll. Great job getting that transcript out and, spreading the word, getting it out there. We can handle our shit. So Blizzard, keep hooking us up. On another note of that, credit to Navox out there for getting the big pickup for the week about a 34-slot bag hiding in a waterfall out there. And Wowhead correctly attributed that to Nav with the tweet, the big deal. So good job, Nav. Thanks for telling everybody and getting it out there. And if you haven't seen it, go check out at NAV_OX, see his tweet. There's a Wowhead article about it, but go to Nav. Get him the like, get him the retweet, do the deal. I also wanted to mention, if you saw Twitter, the show Twitter, Unshackled Fury Twitter, at Unshackled_Fury, we had a surprise heroic Dragonflight key giveaway. Congratulations to our winner on that one, and apologies that I did not have that ready for the last show. That was what I was hoping to get. There was word that we might have an extra key coming. I asked to get that as part of the Ian interview episode, and that did not happen. So glad to get it though, and glad to get one more person out there happy and playing. So that was good. And then last note, before we jump to our next segment, if you saw my personal Twitter at Berserker Rage, you saw that I was one of the lucky recipients of the Blizzard gift box that got sent out to a bunch of the content creators. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know how I'm on that list. I don't. Because I know that there are plenty of other people that aren't, and probably have higher sub numbers and listener counts than I do. So, honest to God, I don't know how I'm on that list. I'm very thankful to be on that list. I was blown away. I did get wind that something may be coming. Now, they did ask, somebody did reach out and said, hey, we're planning on sending something out. I want to confirm your details. Like, oh shit, all right, yeah, of course. Here's the details to Casa Berserker. And what showed up was this giant box. It was heavy, right? Because it had a CE in it, and it had these other items, a Dragon Isles map, which I got to figure out where I'm going to put that, and some really nice wooden coasters, a nice journal that was in there, and this really great shadow box art of the key art for Dragonflight. And I was I don't expect any of this stuff when you look at what I'm doing here, I have a regular day job, Monday through Friday, doing my thing. I got family and all this kind of stuff. What I'm doing here, this is a few hours that I spend every week creating a podcast. I do my notes and I keep track of the stuff that I want to talk about throughout the, interval between episodes. But this is, this is a side gig. This is something that I do because I want to do it for fun. I want to get my piece out there in a community that I love. But I don't expect anything really from this other than to connect with you, my listener, or to just be part of this community in a deeper and more meaningful way, I hope. But to have something like that come to my house, they literally addressed it to Berserker, which I really appreciate. It means a lot to me, and as I always promise, I'm going to tell you about that, because let me tell you, I guarantee there are a number of content creators out there who receive this exact same thing and haven't said one fucking word. And I don't abide by that. I think if you get something of that magnitude from somebody that you don't even frankly work for, that you just do it because it's fun and you're part of the community, I think that you should say something. I think you should be grateful in that way to show publicly, hey, everybody, I was also part of this. Some people think it's showing off. I get that. But at the same time, I'm about transparency. And yeah, if Blizzard sends a giant box of shit to my house, you're damn right I'm going to tell you about it. And from my perspective, again, I don't expect it. I'm very humbled by it. The fact that they would even think to send something like that to me, really appreciate it. So again, this was not something that I paid for. This was for free. They just sent it out to content creators. But really, really appreciate it. So, yeah, there you go. All cut up. So now we got something we got to rage about. It's a big one. It's a big one. This may be the most important rage segment of this entire expansion. That's right. Right away. First weekend. This could be the most important. So let's get into it. Let's rage. So this may be the most important. This may be the most important one. It'll be fairly brief. But there's something I think that needs to be said. And I'm probably not the first to say it. In fact, I'm positive I'm not the first to say it. But there's something that needs to be said about Dragonflight right off the top. And that is, it is just too damn good. If you've been playing it all in the last week, you know what I'm talking about. The leveling, amazing. Dragon riding, stupendous. The zones, par excellence. The music, all-time bangers. The story, cohesive and something I actually kind of care about. The lack of pressure to get everything done, to race, and do a bunch of crap at the end. The lack of that pressure, glorious. Blizzard, you need to slow this down. This whiplash, it's too strong. Shadowlands, dumpster fire. This expansion, Dragonflight, an oasis, a pleasure palace. You can't have it all too good all at once up front. I mean, what's next? Will the raids all be good? No. Will we get regular content updates? That's insane. We can't have it. You know how this is supposed to work. You trickle this out. One good thing, and then maybe another good thing over here, and maybe another good thing over here. Maybe I'll work my way up to these things. Maybe, over 6 months I can earn all these good things, but you give them all at once, and they're great. It's unbelievable. They're shooting themselves in the foot. They're really setting themselves up for failure here, because there's nowhere to go but down. You can't keep getting better. You can't sustain this level. It's impossible. Or maybe they're onto something. Maybe it is possible. Maybe this could be the way going forward. I hadn't thought about that. Maybe this is just the new baseline. Could it be? No. Blizzard will fall back into their ways. I guarantee it. It's too good. It's just too good. Oh, I've had too much fun this past week. It's unbelievable. And yeah, for anybody that's saying this, that it's too good right out the gate, you can get lost. It's too good. All right. I've said it. It's too good. All is too great. So now, why don't we get into the news, and I will tell you why it's too great in detail. Let's go. Yeah, so clearly that's all bullshit. This is there's nothing to be mad about here. Before I jump into the Dragonflight stuff, just real quick, just want to say one last piece about Shadowlands and the Phase 2 of the pre-patch. One, finish the Drakthir, finish that zone, got the Drakthir leveled up, got them in a Stormwind, the whole thing. And very smooth. I thought that was not overly long or complicated. Definitely not going to be playing an Evoker anytime soon or ever. But it was a great introduction to Razageth and the Dragon Isles and kind of the story going on there. So if you haven't played through it, it's worth it just to see it. Even if you're not going to play the class, it's easy enough. I am by no means a ranged DPS. I mean, I throw my weapon from time to time, but that's different. Play through it just to get to know it. I thought it was very smooth, great intro. Give you a sense of the stakes that we're going to start playing for. Overall, during the pre-patch, I did biff it a little bit. I managed to level 3 alts. Now that's cheating because one of them's a Drakthir, and I forgot my Druid. I forgot Berserker. But I did manage to get a DK and a Paladin leveled up and a Drakthir. So at this point, that is the first time that I've started an expansion with at least 1 alt, let alone 2 alts or more at level starting an expansion. This is the first time I've done that in 2 expansions. I think Legion was the last time. It's been a long time. There was some really old gear on those alts, and it was very nice to be able to just run around and do the Primal Storms and level up and then slap that gear on real quick and then off we go. And that gear wasn't too bad. And speaking of the Primal Storms, almost blew it. The Primal Air guy refused to spawn like the last couple of days. And so like a lot of people, I waited till the end. I was like, all right, well, I only need 1 more. I'm sure it'll spawn. And I spent all of at least the last day, I was logging on at all kinds of weird times to try to catch that timer. And it wouldn't spawn, and I know a bunch of us were freaking out. And credit to Corey over at Bonus Roll, because they were blowing it up. And Blizz, the devs, must have heard it, because in the middle of a cycle, it spawned. The air one spawned. And I was able to get in, get that essence or whatever that last piece was to create the trinket. So I did get the trinket, and I don't know. I credit to Corey. Honestly, I didn't see anybody else complaining the same way, and I think I saw at least a dev or somebody respond to it. So that was a nice frantic end to that. But overall, it was a pretty low key pre-expansion event. Having played through the whole thing, got accomplished what I needed to. Clearly, 2 weeks was long enough for everybody, I think, to do what they needed to do. A little rush at the end, but do I miss the old days of cataclysmic pre-expansion events where all hell is breaking loose and there's a lot of activity? I mean, a little bit, because I think it gets you excited for stuff, but it's okay. It's okay. We'll take it this time around. And in the end, last thought about Shadowlands before we move on. The Shadowlands was clearly an experiment into kind of like high fantasy or these other big concepts and other systems. And even I have to say it was a failure. I didn't have as big of problems with it as a lot of people did. But as an experience, as an expansion overall, it was a failure. But as a wise, I don't know, is Yoda a man? I don't think we even know what race Yoda is. As Yoda once said, the greatest teacher failure is. And I think that is true. because look at what we have now. So starting on the 28th at 3 p.m. Pacific time out here on the West Coast, waiting for a boat. Takes to the Dragon Isles. Very excited. I got lots of screenshots. Mounts, drakes, everywhere. People going nuts. Waiting for the boat. 3 p.m. hits. Oh, actually 2:59 hit. There's the quest. We're going to the Dragon Isles. Hell yeah. Let's rip. Let's go. And where's the boat? You see a boat? We got a boat? Oh, that's a boat. No, that's the boat to Borealis. All right. Well, let's wait. Is that a boat? No, that's not a boat. Hit the timer. What's the guy say? We got timers on this. Oh, he doesn't know. The timer's not moving. Oh, shit. Oh, wait. There's one boat. There's one boat. Everybody get on that boat. You know what? I'm going to wait. You guys get on that boat. I'm going to wait for the next one. I'm waiting for my homie. The homie Rommel will show up. You guys jump on that boat. Okay. And then the next boat doesn't come. And that seemed to be the experience shared sort of across the spectrum here, where for many folks, when the timer hit, the transport did not show up. There were several server resets I saw. I know that one happened on mine, and a few other things happened. And so initially, it was a bit dire, and I was concerned that, oh my God, here we go. This is Cyberpunk all over again. All this goodwill, all this hype, everybody feeling good, and it just goes, pew, and it just crashes because of some tech that went sideways, and people are like, oh shit. But a few hours later, everything seemed to be worked out, and other than the memes, I don't think anyone's really gonna remember that time, because after that, once we all hit the Dragon Isles, it has been, without question, one of the greatest experiences in Warcraft ever. And I know that that's high praise, but there is but one area that I can find fault at this point. I'm going to go through a few things here about my experience so far and what I've seen around the community. But man, they're crushing it. The word that came to mind at this point is transcendent. Transcendent. I mean, that's how good I'm feeling at this point. So overall, for me, took a slower approach this time around. And I always talk about this. I'm going to take a little bit longer to level. I'm going to take my time, and then I end up just rushing to the end or whatever. Now, part of that was because my leveling partner had some real-life things to deal with. And, he kept trying to encourage me to hey, you don't have to wait for me. But you know what? I'm going to say this to you, Rommel, because I know you listen to this. I'm always going to wait for you, homie. We level together. This is how this works. We've been romantic partners this long. This is how this goes. So there was a little bit of forced slowdown, but even still, never felt the need to rush, and really took our time. Starting out in the Waking Shores, initially it was just kind of clearing everything out. Of course, going through the main campaign, but all the side quests, as everybody knows now, just the unlimited number of side quests it feels like now. And I believe that we were about 65 when we finished the first zone. The first. And we hadn't even done everything. There were 2 little questy areas we hadn't even picked up yet. So, leveling, and I almost asked Ian about this when we had our interview, is the concept of levels doesn't even matter anymore, because I mean, everybody I think is leveling well before you get to the end. They did say that you wouldn't have to do any side quests to get to 70. That you could just do the main campaign, blast right through it, and you'll be fine. And that's pretty much track for real at this point. But it's while we leveled. What was going on? And it really did feel like, and Rommel and I talked about this quite a bit, is it really does feel like the older expansions, where it almost got to a point where it felt like, all right, we're just bouncing from place to place, grabbing up, 15, 20 mobs, mow them down. All right, go to the next thing, go to the next one. But with this, with Dragonflight, they told us, this is about exploration and about really, deviating from the path. And they reward you for doing that. All of these little smaller quests where, there's not the universe at stake. It's trying to help some kids who have a little proto Drake that they're trying to nurse back to health. It's stuff like that. It's just fun. It's cute, if you even want to call it that. It's such a refreshing experience. Ultimately, blasting through kind of the end, we took our time in Waking Shores, kind of got through half of Onaran Plains, and then once we got to Azur's Span, we kind of pared it down a little bit and just stuck to the main quest. And so, quite literally, on the way to Valdrakken, hit 70, right? Just exploring one of the zones out there, and then boom, I hit it while I was riding around. Got to Valdrakken, got a little lost because it's so big. Beautiful. I can't wait to explore it more. Frankly, it was last night, got it 70, went to the inn, made the secret inn my home, and that was it. That was it. Logged out, and that's where I sit. What I appreciate is that there is kind of like an emotional swing between the stakes of what we're trying to do, and I'm going to talk about the story in a little bit. But there's significant stakes there, but then there's smaller things like getting these little Tuskar kids some fish so they can feed this little knoll or whatever it is that they found, right? Or there was a really beautiful quest line again there with the Tuskar about sending a chief off on a burial ritual or a funerary ritual. Again, not huge stakes, but a beautiful little quest nonetheless. And to be able to kind of pendulum swing between the big stuff and more of the lower stakes stuff, and the fact that there's so much of it, it feels great. That you don't have to do this stuff. You can just kind of pick your own adventure, choose your own adventure. I love it. And the way that they've structured this, with everything that's hidden in between the stuff that you get directed to, is fantastic. No complaints. 10 out of 10. Part and parcel with that, of course, is dragon riding. We learn it very early on in the expansion. A handful of quests in, and boom, you got that Drake. If you want to, you can go get all the glyphs right away. There's an add-on. I think for the first half of our leveling, we didn't have that. We were finding them on our own, but then said fuck it yesterday. Grabbed the overlay handy notes and scooped up a whole bunch of them. There's still some left, but that quickly and early adds to your abilities, which makes dragon riding easier because it does take a little bit of getting used to, right? The physics is different. This is more like actual flying, building up speed and gliding, and what happens if you run out of I was talking about running out of vigor. I ran out of vigor. You're down at the bottom of some canyon somewhere, like, so every once in a while having to climb from like sea level up to somewhere high, especially in Azur's Span, where Caligos often was, trying to make sure you had enough to get up there. That was a little tricky, and I think that's part of what forced us to be like, you know what, we gotta get more juice on this dragon, or else we're never gonna get anywhere. But the speed, once you get it dialed in, it's unbelievable. It's so much fun. I promised everybody, from my experiences in the alpha and the beta, getting to play it, even then when it wasn't as good, you could tell this is a thing. Now they've opened themselves up to a problem, and for sure. And I saw a Polygon article about this. Like, is it too good? It's still good. It's still good. I think that's going to depend on how this sort of plays out down the road. Like, are people going to get tired of this? Are people just going to love it forever? Are they going to open this up to other mounts? Because believe you me, I'd love to do this with my Time Lost Proto Drake. I think that'd be fantastic. Let alone all the other cool stuff we have. So I don't know. they're gonna have a hard decision to make down the road. Is this just a Dragon Isles thing? Does this expand? You know, that's gonna be a tough one. But early on, though, phenomenal. The way that they've intentionally built the zones to have these peaks and valleys and, you know, these precipices and all these places where you can go. The dragon racing, it's almost too fast at some points. I would get just completely lost. I'd get, you know, maybe it was my camera view. I'd get stuck behind a tree or get caught up in a house or something like that because the angle was all weird. But that's a lot of fun. And I can see we're being in a PvP situation, perhaps. Getting to race against other people, I would dig that. I think that is a form of PvP that I would do. I haven't gotten there yet. Probably have to max everything out. Acquiring the new drakes. The green one is hella ugly. I don't know. It looks like a big chicken. The blue one, pretty good. That's like a standard drake, I think. The proto drake, still my favorite kind of model, but got to unlock all the goodies there. And then I don't have the fourth one yet, but it's, you know, very wyvernous. It's okay. It's okay. But overall, again, 10 out of 10. Dragon riding, it's unbelievable. And there had better be some raid bosses or parts of raid that incorporate the dragon riding. And I know it'll piss people off. Like, it'd be like the Drakes back in the Nexus. I know. But it could be a lot of fun. You know, having to fly around or catch things or do things. You know, there's a couple of different styles of races, right? There's the one where you have to go through the rings. There is the version where you have to just go find the rings. It's not a path that's laid out for you. I could see where that could get built into some kind of a raid environment. But overall, phenomenal. Love getting around that way. Sorry to all my ground mounts. But dragon riding, Hall of Fame system right there. As for the zones, speaking of the zones, you've heard it said before. I'll say it here. Pandaria vibes. Right? Beautiful, lush. You know, even just this one area that we were in, I want to say it was like upper Onaran Plains. Just some little out-of-the-way place. It's where we start with the caravan, which, by the way, another great quest. One of the many great quests as part of that chain here is the caravan in Onaran Plains, and you hear the story and you learn all this stuff about them. It's very paced, right? You can't speed through that thing. You gotta be with the folks. You gotta wait for them. Riding on the big floof wolf thing. That was a good time. But even being up in that part of the zone, right? Almost kind of a throwaway because you're not going to stay there very long. And it's just gorgeous. There's these like crystal lights or something. Crystal light. There's these crystals hanging under the trees. And it just has that vibe. I like to call it like this Disneyland vibe where you feel like you're transported to another place. It's just magical. I don't have the best words for it, I think. It just feels right. And the change between the zones, Waking Shores, you know, very mountainous, right? Volcanic. You get to Onaran Plains, very open. Has that maybe the grand feel almost to it. And you get to Azure Span, very cold, which is perfect right now, as mentioned in this last night. It's perfect to play that zone when it's freezing ass cold outside and it's cold in your house. It's maybe that what do they call it? 4D. It's that 4D gaming right there. But beautiful zones. The hidden areas. They told us there'd be hidden areas. Again, Navox. Finding a bag behind a waterfall. I would have flown into that waterfall. I'd have flown right over it. You look out there in the community right now. Just article upon article and tweet and post upon tweet and post about all of the hidden things that people are finding. Class trainers and quests and items, and it's littered all over the place. Some of these things you can get marked. You can buy, you know, these treasure maps and stuff, but it's one of the joys that we have of finding something that we didn't intend, right? And something that gives us a reward or an experience that we didn't expect. But something that's either valuable, either intrinsically or systematically. Great choices. And I really do think that this expansion can hold up almost on the zones alone because they're so awe-inspiring. with the quality of the assets. You know, they tuned up the view distance, and so you can see a good chunk of the Isles all at once, and to really take it all in, especially Valdrakken. My God, it's awe-inspiring. For a video game, it's pretty legit. And that gets us to the music. And let me tell you, if you do not play this game with the music on, shame on you. Whatever you're listening to, I'm sure it's of great personal value. But you owe it to yourself to play this expansion with the music on. At the very least, Azure Span is an immediate Hall of Famer. Comparisons to Grizzly Hills, not without merit. It just takes you to another place. All of the zone music, which they, for the most part, Warcraft has traditionally been very strong when it comes to the themes, to zone music, call it what you want, but they've always had a very strong showing there. Russell Brower used to be one of the folks in charge with the music, and he did a great job, I think, leading the pack back in like the Pandaria days. But you still got a lot of really great talent pouring it in now that have been around a long time. Neil Acree, a great musician who has done a lot of work with Blizzard, along with a lot of the studio folks that they've had for many years. They're just crushing it. And each zone, when you get in there and you hear the music, it really gives you the sense of where you are. It helps to fill in the sort of emotional plug that has to be there to be like, all right, I feel like, I'm in Anaran Plains. There's some Mongol battle shit about to go down. Like, I'm ready. Like, let's get the hunt. Let's do the thing. Right? Azure Span. It's mystical. It's quiet. It's a starry night in a snowbound environment where things are just a little mysterious. Right? All of them. All these zones. It just gives you such a great sense of where you are. And one of the things that Warcraft has done so well that, Shadowlands had decent music. It was good, but it wasn't like this. I really think they stepped it up again. Another 10 out of 10. Doing an amazing job. So why are we there? Why are we in this place? That's a good question. Let's talk about the story. Talk about the story. Dragonflight. I think the base of the story that most people understand, or should understand through leveling, is that we are essentially trying to help the aspects become re-empowered. Right? There's these stones that are in every zone that are tied to each flight, and that we're trying to re-energize them, re-empower them to bring the aspects back to their former glory. And there's a question about, all right, why are we doing that? Maybe forgotten. Maybe we weren't paying attention. I don't know. We'll get to that. A side part of that I've enjoyed more than I thought I would, and it wasn't as in-depth as I thought, or it's more in-depth than I thought it would be, is the Rathian versus Sibelian situation, where each one believes that they are the chosen leader, successor to Neltharion of the Black Dragonflight. And I have to commend Blizzard for really presenting a compelling choice between the two. Now, am I going with Rathian? You goddamn right I'm going with Rathian. That's my king's boy, friend. I can't go with Sibelian. I just can't. There are some legitimate arguments to be made. And I think if I didn't know anything about anything, I would look at Sibelian and go, that dude is way stronger. Rathian's gotten his ass kicked a bunch of times. Sibelian's the man. Let's go. Great model, by the way. But Rathian's going to be the one that I go with. But the choice through leveling through Waking Shores and seeing what's going on with the Black Dragonflight and helping them restore their stone and get their eggs going and the whole deal. I thought that was very well done. And a compelling choice between the two. Now, I go back to the fact that nobody ever talks about resurrecting Neltharion. He just blew up and disappeared. No sign of him in the Shadowlands, I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Could be out there. But, in this time of resurrection and bringing stuff back, why not bring back the OG and tell the both of these kids to get bent? Why not? You could do it. But if not, we're stuck with these two. Rathian, clearly. And they also have the amazing skin for your dragon riding. The black dragon looks fantastic. But back to the main storyline. Empowering the Dragonflights. All right, why are we doing this? Well, let's start with Razageth. Razageth, big, crazy-looking storm dragon. Saw Razageth in the launch cinematic. That was the one they talked about, the penguin mouth. Big electric storm, like crazy, wild energies, chasing those two dragon riders. That's Razageth. We saw her in the intro for the Drakthir, getting a sense of like what's going on. Which I love, just full of fury and rage, and like has all this energy, which is so well represented by the storms about this character, right? Just is able to harness, kind of like Thor, right? Just harnessing all of this energy, and has a real beef with Alexstrasza and making these statements about her being this false leader and really committing to this idea that the Titans were harmful to the dragons, harmful to them. And in a cinematic that we see where Rathian is talking with the other aspects, there was a mention by Nosdormu of somebody called Iridikron. I know when I heard that, I was like, who the fuck is Iridikron? I'm looking through all my stuff. I'm like, did I miss something? No. We got to talk about, going one step further, the primal incarnates. So going back to when the aspects were empowered, right? There was Galakrond, the giant dragon-eating dragon, this huge old god-powered thing. We've seen his bones out there in Northrend and Dragonblight. So when the aspects got together, the original 5, and they formed Voltron. No, when they fought Galakrond, they were empowered by the Titans, by Tyr, and they rose to what they are as we know them. Fully powered, powerful dragons, leaders of their flights, colors respectively. There were 4 what they call primal incarnates who rejected the Titans' gifts, as Nosdormu called them. And Razageth is the youngest of those 4. At some time in the past, eons in the past, the aspects fought these incarnates and were able to defeat them. But Alexstrasza decided, we're not going to kill them. We're going to show them mercy and had them imprisoned instead. So instead of killing them, wiping them out, as Rathian was like, why didn't we do that? Alexstrasza showed mercy. And it's one of those stories where showed mercy as the victor, and now it's coming back to haunt them. So that now brings us to what our first raid is going to be, the Vault of the Incarnates. This is the prison where these incarnates have been kept. Iridikron, one of them, I believe. Razageth is trying to break them out. She got broken out. She's trying to break them out. And so now the aspects are faced with this situation where they, without their aspect power, are now no longer strong enough to defeat these incarnates. So circling all the way back around, we are re-empowering the aspects, theoretically, so they can help defeat the incarnates in case they break out, or to keep them from breaking out of their prison. So that's kind of the circle that we're in right now, is these primal dragons, these primal incarnates from way long ago. They lost, got in their prison, their buddy trying to jailbreak them, and we're trying to empower the aspects to keep them strong enough to prevent that from happening, or if they do get out, to put them back in. So, these primal incarnates, we assume that they're going to have some kind of a role down the road. Are these bosses that are going to be, if there's 4 of them, is there going to be all 4 of them or 3 of them in a raid? Because I know we fight Razageth at the end of this raid, although we don't know what happens. Are they all going to be together? Are they going to be trickled out over time? And how does Murazond fit into this? Does Nosdormu's corruption happen as a result of this somehow? Because we've been shown that Razageth is pretty powerful. Took Alistraza out. Rathian came, kind of saved her, but you saw in the Waking Shores, if you played through it, spoiler alert, when Alistraza and Razageth fight, Razageth fucks some shit up. Hits her with the biggest lightning bolt in the history of lightning bolts. So it's clear that they do need the power. And thinking back to the cinematics that we had, the legacy cinematics that we had, and Nosdormu was trying to learn what happened with Neltharion and how Neltharion eventually turned to the old gods in his desperation to defeat these same people who the aspects are these same entities that the aspects are trying to defeat now. Is it possible that they break out of the vault and Nosdormu, in his desperation, somehow becomes Murazond to try to stop them, or tries to get some power to stop them, and as a result becomes Murazond? Maybe. So that's where we stand. The aspects must be re-empowered to try and stop the primal incarnates, one of which we've already seen. And that is sort of the main quest line that we've been playing through. When we interviewed Ian, he made that statement about how there are big surprises coming, encrypted items that nobody has seen, and it's tied around the raid. Well, that's coming. That's coming soon. And it won't be long before we see what that is. We've seen now where people are playing through the campaign, playing through and leveling up their renown, and more cinematics, more little things are starting to come out. Stuff that we haven't seen before, items that we haven't known. So there's a lot of meat left on this bone. We have a general sense of where we're going and why. But there's still more to come. Surprises right around the road. I'm really excited to see it. And I'm sure it will be all over the place very soon. But that is, in a nutshell, the story at this point. I'm buying into the story. I'm with it. I'm like, all right, we're doing this. We're going to help the aspects. These dudes sound bad. I'm really curious why Razageth says all this stuff about Alistraza being false and all these other things. Clearly, there's more of the story there. And I'm invested. I want to know. I want to know more about it. I want to hear these reasons. Razageth seems to be somewhat sympathetic, and I want to hear why. Trying to be a little more nuanced with their bad guy, even though Razageth is hilariously over the top. I love it. I want to know why. I want to know more. And to me, that's the sign of a good story. I love that most about Warcraft, and so I'm a bit of an easy mark on that. But right now, 10 out of 10. Love it. Very much. What I also love is the lack of pressure. It's just the lack of pressure. I'm just having fun. It's so nice to feel, and I don't know what everybody else feels. Like, I only know how I, as this human, feels. But, and sometimes I tie this to like my, ADD or whatever. But there's this itch, there's this bug that I feel. It's compulsion of a type, I suppose, where I feel like I really want to keep doing this thing. And at this point, it's not because I'm afraid of falling behind. I just want to see everything. I want to go back. I want to see the quests that I missed. I'm already 70. It's not because I want to level more, and the gold rewards are not that big a deal, so it's not like I'm going to get rich for my character doing it. I just want to see it. I just want to fly around and see the stories and experience what they have planned out for us. And maybe it's that part of me that's getting older where I care more about experiences in my life than things. But this is where this iteration of Warcraft, I think, really hits a great mark, because my quest log is ridiculous. I've skipped so many things because I just kind of got overwhelmed, but in a good way. And I just said, okay, I'll pick up the flight point here, and I'll go back at some point and pick this stuff up, because it's... Every time we kept trying to go to a main thing, well, let's go do these other 3 over here real quick. Oh, okay, we'll go do these other 3 real quick. And then we're heading back. Oh, let's go do this other... Okay, let's do this other thing. We just kept getting sidetracked. But it was fun. All of it. All of it was great. Not a failure in the bunch. Exploring, finding the hidden treasures, but doing it at our own pace. Hell, I took Wednesday and Thursday night of this week off. I didn't even play those nights because I had other stuff to take care of. And all I could think about, I just wanted to get back on. I just wanted to get back on. And not because I wanted to level, just because I wanted to play. I just wanted to see it. I just wanted to experience it. And I love it. I love it. I love that feeling. I've missed that feeling so badly. You know, I love this franchise as much as I love just about any. And it's been a hard slog for the community. And there have been many people who've given up. But I have spoken to or heard from or seen more people coming back from long layoffs to this expansion than ever before. While we were leveling the other night, one of our guildmates came on. Somebody who quit early into Shadowlands. Good guy. Really good member of our team, and somebody that we missed, you know, just as a human, just somebody who was just a valuable person to have. And it was great to hear his voice, and he was so happy coming back, had a lot of positive things to say. And he mentioned how he ran Ruby Life Pools. You know, it's one of the dungeons we run early. That's the only one I've run. As an aside, it was fine. I haven't seen the other dungeons yet, so I don't have any other commentary on them yet. But even he mentioned that when he was in the dungeon, every other person in there was coming back from a layoff, and they were all having a great time. And you see it over and over again. People coming back who haven't been around in several expansions. You know, missed all of the AP era. The accumulated power, whatever we're calling it. And to get to the point where we are now, to see that, and to feel that personally, it's tremendous. And it feels very rewarding, you know, to see it. You know, those of us that have stuck around. To have this now play out, it's awesome. And to see friends coming back, can't say enough about it. And so to get to this point, I'm very thankful, very grateful. Can't wait to jump back in. Like, even recording this podcast today was hard. I'm like, man, I want to play. But I got shit to do. So all of that together makes for a very rewarding first week. And the only place where I have any criticism at this point are about the professions. I do believe that the professions could use a little bit of work. As somebody who doesn't do them a lot, again, it's one of those things I say at the beginning of an expansion. I'm going to commit to my professions. It's a confusing UI, the work order stuff, just making your own thing. Like, I am confused by it. I'm sure that some veterans of the crafting scene are like, it's fine, it's great. I find it to be not as straightforward as I think it should be. I shouldn't have to go to a third party to explain it to me. It should be either intuitive or more instructive. I know that this was something that didn't get a lot of work in the beta and kind of came towards the end. So that I do feel a little bit, and I think there's going to be some updates or changes or whatever to this. But I was able to make some stuff. I was able to level. You know, it wasn't completely without use. I know Rommel, he made himself damn near a full set of gear once he hit 70, and boom, he was ready. I was not. I didn't even have the plans to make any of that armor yet. But I will. I'll get there. I'll figure it out. So professions, 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. It needs some work, but overall, very successful first week. I think the launch, missing boat aside, very well received. I think people are pretty happy, and that's a great start. that's how we want to be. That's how we want to be at this point. We've got at least, 2 years, I would guess. Every expansion at this point seems to go about 2 years. We got 2 years of content, hopefully to look forward to. And we can't judge everything right off the first week, but so far, this is shaping up to be an all-timer. And I hope all of you are having as much fun as I have been. Switching gears a little bit, wanted to jump over and give my thoughts on the very lengthy, very comprehensive video that Preach put out, discussed on here before. Preach was granted access down to the Blizzard campus and had a series of interviews with folks. John Haidt, Holly Longdale, Ian Hazzakostas, Josh Allen, who no longer works there, and got to dive in to the culture, to what's going on, to their thoughts on old systems, new systems. It was a very comprehensive video. It's pretty long, so I'm not going to go through it point by point. But a couple of things that did stick out to me. One, I think it was great for Blizzard, or at least folks on Team 2, the Warcraft team. It was great to see them open up and to see them, I think, a little more humanized, to get their thoughts on missteps or challenges or where they see things going and why, the culture change, all of that stuff. I thought that was fantastic. It really feels very positive. When they got specifically asked about allegations, there's only so much you can say, but the comments that they had, it all felt like things were trending in the right direction. Now, one thing to think about is that there is a difference between these folks on the Warcraft team versus Activision Blizzard, the company. Sometimes when you work for an organization, as I think all of us understand, you are not able to just enact change. You kind of have to try to do what you can locally, the best that you can, be as loud as you can in certain circumstances, but at the end of the day, sometimes you can only go so far. So criticisms for Activision Blizzard, and I'm sure even for the Warcraft team, still exist, and fairly so. But overall, feels like Team 2 is heading in the right direction, listening to their folks, and trying to create an environment where people want to be, feel nurtured, because these are artists. You have to give artists some room to breathe and be creative, and it sounds like that is being allowed to happen. Another aspect that I thought was a great meditation on game design, as well as kind of how we ended up in this sort of AP era, was talking about how when they're planning out expansions, right? They have to think a couple of expansions ahead. And so where we ended up getting stuck in this AP artifact power, Azerite power, cycle of borrowed power, kind of goes back to Legion, where, artifacts, they're really, really well received. Let's keep doing that. And so they had this philosophy of this is what we're going to do. And where the artifacts were really well received, by the time we get into BFA and we don't really like this, it's already too late to change the systems that they've been working on that late in the development cycle. And so they realized, once a lot of work had already been done on these other systems and other expansions, that, oh shit, we're headed for the iceberg and there's nowhere to go. So we got to eat it. And so it was interesting to see how, when you look at that cycle over a long enough timeline, how it takes a while to get out. Once that inertia builds up, you kind of have to let it hammer out, and then eventually you can make the right course correction because you have the time and the resources to do it. Hence, where we end up now in Dragonflight, where we don't have any of that shit, and people seem pretty happy. Along those same lines, right, it's moving away from these systems where they are designed just for that expansion, and then you give them up, and then you start over again. And so that was the philosophy. They spoke very openly about it. That was the philosophy that they were following, is, hey, we'll have this system for this expansion, and then we'll move on to the next one. And that seems like a good idea, partly because artifacts were so well received. But now we're going to be moving on to things that are what they call evergreen systems. So they don't have to reinvent the wheel every single expansion with a whole new thing. It's going to be systems that are more similar as we move along from expansion to expansion. Now, the way that the video is told, some of these items I don't think are as revelatory as they were made out to be. Like, oh, that's what they mean about the philosophy of we're going to have artifacts, and then we're going to have the Heart of Azeroth, and we're going to have these stuff. So that's what they meant by, they're going to have, just one here and then one here. Oh, that was a philosophy idea that they... Well, yeah. I mean, of course. Like, just the way that was, there would be the interview, and then there'd be the, sort of exposition about it. I don't know that it's as revelatory as it was being made out to be, along the same lines of like, so that's why they don't take all the changes that I suggest. Again, not that revelatory. Yeah, I'm sure that they see all this stuff, and there was part of this interview with Josh Allen, which was also a little odd because he doesn't work there anymore, and he's a different kind of dude. Yeah, they see all the feedback, but yeah, there's reasons why they don't take it. It's not just because they're not listening. They have their reasons. They may be shitty reasons, but they have their reasons. So, I get it. We all do it. I'm guilty of it too. Trying to, make things more important than perhaps they really are. But it came off a little odd. Also, the whole thing about coming to Blizzard on your dime, and then there's an ad for Displate in the middle of it saying, hey, Displate sponsored this so we could do this. Oh, okay, so Displate paid for it. Or at least help offset some of the costs. Okay, fine. So be it. That was just, okay. The thing that I did take away from it at the end, which I really liked hearing, was the try to quote him here, was as he was leaving, or wrapping up the interview, he says he's leaving, whatever, that a meeting, quote, has been going on since 5 a.m. discussing where World of Warcraft will be in the next 10 years. Now, I've heard in a couple of interviews with Ian recently where they talk about where they see Warcraft, not just in terms of one expansion or two expansions, they're talking about decades, 10 years, 20 years, which to me is bananas. To think of them thinking of Warcraft potentially when I'm nearing retirement age. The thought of me playing Warcraft my entire adult life, or it being a viable game my entire adult life, is mind-blowing to me. Because I don't know anything like that, right? All the other games I've ever played, right? They have a life cycle. You play them, they're cool for 6 months, maybe a year. If you have a bunch of Steam backlog stuff like we all do, you come back to 10 years later, like, oh, this game was great. But to have a living, breathing, viable game like Warcraft for that long, it's mind-blowing to me. But I appreciate hearing that is still how they think about it. And I think with Dragonflight, the success that we're about to see, it's only going to increase that more so. That the resources are going to remain or grow, that the proper attention will be paid, and that this will still continue to be a force in the industry as it should be. It's very exciting. So overall, very happy with the state of things. I can't wait to dive into play. I'd love to hear what the rest of you have to say about it, but I welcome the Dragonflight era with open arms, and I can't wait to see what we've got just around the corner. For this show, probably going to have one more episode before the end of the year, and then I'll take my customary time off, have a little recharge around the holidays, and then back in the early part of next year. Ready to rip and run. Bonus roll, done a good job this year, and I'll talk a little bit about that in the next episode. But looking forward to 2023. I think we're going to have a very big year. Very excited. And Dragonflight is kicking it off the right way. All right. That'll do it for this episode. My thanks to all of you for listening. And remember, you can always follow me and this show on Twitter at BerserkerRage and Unshackled_Fury. You can also join our Discord, links for which are in the profile of the show on Twitter and on our Bonus Roll Productions page. Feel free to contact the show with your questions, comments, or otherwise through any of those resources or unshackledfury.com. And you can find this show wherever you get your podcasts. So once again, thank you for listening. Remember to keep your swords wet and your banners high, and we'll see you next time. Farewell.